On January 20th, 1981, Reagan took office. As president, he was a great representative. President Ronald Reagan knew what he needed to be done and how to do it. Ronald obtained legislation to stimulate economic growth, curb inflation, increase employment, and strengthen the national defense. Ronald Reagan came into Congress at a tough time for the government. It was a tough time because the United States was experiencing one of the worst economic times since the Depression. Taxes were at one of the highest points, unemployment was high, and the spirit of the nation was low. With all of these things going on, the U.S. was still fighting in the Cold War. The two things he most focused on was his tax cut and strengthening the national defense. Before his presidency, he was president of the Film Actors Union and was an actor in Hollywood. He used his position in fighting communism. Through Reagan's 2 terms, he accomplished many things. He strengthened the national defense by ultimately containing communism during the Cold War and ended the war. He also strengthened the economy with his tax reform during his 2 terms. Through everything, Ronald Reagan went beyond what he was expected to do.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. And this idea that government is beholden to the people, that it has no other source of power except the sovereign people, is still the newest and the most unique idea in all the long history of man's relation to man. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves. You and I are told increasingly we have to choose between a left or right. Well, I'd like to suggest there is no such thing as a left or right. There's only an up or down.
On May 28, 1985, President Ronald Reagan spoke to America about the new tax reform. He informed them that we must change our tax system because it will send interest rates soaring and destroy our economy if we continue. He stated that our tax system has been modified dozens of times in hundreds of ways, yet those changes never improved the system. They were designed for those in power and benefited them the most. Reagan's overall goal in this reform was to allow citizens to pay taxes correctly and fairly. People either didn't mind paying taxes because it was to their benefit or they were being taken advantage of. This reform helped the U.S. prepare for the Cold War in case anything did happen. Reagan strengthened the weak and vulnerable army. The administration funded research and development of weapon systems, including stealth technology and precision weaponry. Also, from these taxes, he built larger training bases and higher military pay. Overall, from tax reforms, he left behind a restored economy that had high inflation and unemployment left over from the late 70s. Unemployment fell from 7.6% to 5.5%. As he brought taxation down from 70% to 28%, Reagan proved that reducing excessive tax rates creates growth, economic activity, and boosts tax revenue. Government tax rose from $244 billion in 1980 to $446 billion in 1989, resulting in 20 million jobs being created.
The Cold War took place in the year 1945 to 1980. It was a war that occurred because Germany wanted to dominate many foreign affairs, and much crisis around the world resulted from this. It also started because of the later future of Europe. All of this caused many different theories of communism and free world, which officially would have started the Cold War. Reagan played a major role in the Cold War in its entirety. Even though all the many things he did were criticized, in the long run they helped America immensely. For example, Reagan ceased the occurrence of domestic strife between two pro-communists to launch an invasion by U.S. troops to supposedly protect U.S. medical students and restore order in the Caribbean island of Grenada. After we gained control of this land, a new democratic U.S. government was established. Ronald Reagan was internationally criticized for his decisions without the UN's support. However, Grenada was the first successful military effort and helped establish confidence in the U.S. Army. Reagan won the re-election that year. Reagan then met with Gorbachev and tried to reach an agreement. Both parties were disappointed that no agreement could be reached, with Reagan trying to resolve the idea of SDI and Gorbachev insisting the U.S. stop it as a basis of a new beginning. In 1985, Reagan introduced the Reagan Doctrine to guide U.S. co-work policy in third world countries. Under Reagan's doctrine, the U.S. will provide military and economic support to many different military dictatorships under it.
Now let's set the record straight. There's no argument over the choice between peace and war, but there's only one guaranteed way you can have peace, and you can have it in the next second: surrender. Admittedly, there's a risk in any course we follow other than this, but every lesson of history tells us that the greater risk lies in appeasement. And this is the specter our well-meaning liberal friends refuse to face, that their policy of accommodation is appeasement. And it gives no choice between peace and war, only between fight or surrender. If we continue to accommodate, continue to back and retreat, eventually we have to face the final demand, the ultimatum. And what then? When Nikita Khrushchev has told his people he knows what our answer will be. He has told them that we're retreating under the pressure of the Cold War, and someday, when the time comes to deliver the final ultimatum, our surrender will be voluntary, because by that time, we will have been weakened from within spiritually, morally, and economically.
In February of 1945, at the end of World War II, the U.S., Great Britain, France, and Soviet Union conquered Germany and divided it into 4 parts. They also divided the city of Berlin into 4 sections. In 1949, the U.S., Great Britain, and France combined their territories to make up West Berlin, formerly called the Federal Republic of Germany. Shortly after that, the Soviet Union formed East Germany, called the German Democratic Republic. The U.S., Great Britain, and France invested and developed a capitalist economy system in West Germany. The Soviet Union, on the other hand, established a communist economy system in East Germany. As a result of these policies, 2.5 million Germans moved from East Germany to West Berlin. With this rate of immigration, leaders worried that East Germany would collapse. On the night between August 12th and 13th of 1961, East Germany quickly erected a wall around West Berlin to stop this mass immigration. This took many inhabitants of East and West Berlin by surprise. People who lived in East Germany can no longer receive a good salary in West Berlin. There were 4 different versions of the Berlin Wall. The first consisted of barbed wire and concrete posts. The second was enhanced with concrete blocks and barbed wire. The third, built in 1965, consisted of concrete blocks and supported by steel frames. As communism began to fall in other countries in 1988 and 1989, East Germans could escape to other territories. Suddenly, on November 9, 1988, Gorbachev announced that Germans can relocate to checkpoints between East and West Germany. After this, Germans from both sides began to break down the Berlin Wall. Ronald Reagan's speech was important to the fall of the wall.
General Secretary Gorbachev, if you seek peace, if you seek prosperity for the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, if you seek liberalization, come here to this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate. Mr. Gorbachev. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Tear it down. Reagan smash! Reagan smash!
What's that?
Oh, it's just Reagan. Just leave him alone. He'll tire himself out.
Reagan sleepy.
Thanks for watching our presentation on Ronald Reagan.